but there's a big reason why a lot of times we say to just wait until Memorial Weekend to put your warmer season plants in. A really good rule of thumb is to be watching the nighttime temperatures in the longer range forecast. I would recommend either NOAA or the National Weather Service site. And if you start looking 10 days out and you see any temperatures that are starting to dip into the low 40s, you really want to hold off on your warm season plants. That's because what I've noticed is that they're looking at some really cool temps for this coming Thursday and Friday night. Now, a week ago, they were calling for low 40s. Every day it's inched down a little bit more, and now we're getting down to about 34 or 35 degrees, which is definitely in the range of potential frost. So make sure before you put your warm season plants in the spring, you're always looking at those longer range forecasts and really keeping an eye on those nighttime temperatures. And just a little note of caution about the app that comes on your phone. I've noticed that my app is reading a 24-hour time period, which means that the low temperature, it's not reading like Monday day and then Monday night. The low temperature could be going backwards to Sunday night. So at any rate, that's just a bit of caution about relying too heavily on an app. Again, I recommend either NOAA or the National Weather Service, one of those government websites, for keeping an eye on nighttime temperatures.
Yeah, so Sue's mentioning, those warm weather crops you're not going to want to put in at all this week. And we've got some cool weather crops that we can talk about that you've already planted them or you're thinking about planting them and the temperatures are in, the low 40s. They're probably going to like that weather. And some plants that are in the cool weather loving families include the brassicas. So that's going to be your kale, your cabbages, and your broccolis. It also includes Brussels sprouts, kohlrabi, like rutabagas, turnips, radishes. All of those plants are going to do okay and even kind of enjoy the cooler weather as long as it's not getting, too frosty or below freezing. Another plant family that does okay in the cool weather is your onions. So onions, leeks, garlic, shallots, those should all be okay when the temperatures are in the 30s at night. There's a couple other plants. So we've got like our leafy greens like spinach and lettuce. We've got some planted out here and that's going to be okay. Also, the carrot family, so carrots, celery, things like that. They're going to do okay in the cold weather. And beets are also not quite as cold tolerant, but they will do okay in the cooler weather. So just something to keep in mind as we want to get planting, but some temperatures, we still want to hold off for those warm weather crops. So a lot of the plants in the tray they're going to be warm weather plants. So, our tomatoes and peppers, squashes, our herbs, they do not want it to be super cold. In fact, below 40 degrees can have some detrimental effects on their growth patterns. So these plants really, we don't want to be putting them in this week. But if you have already put them in, there are some things that you can do to make sure that they are okay during this cold spell. The number one most important thing that you can do is if it's getting into the mid-30s at night, you're probably going to want to cover them just to protect them and try to trap in some of that heat. So some agricultural cloth like we talked about in our last video, even sheets. As long as they're not crushing the plants, you want to make sure that they are light enough, or you're putting like a little metal hoop or even a rock or just something so it's over the plant but not weighting it down too much. Some people also do like an overturned flower pot, or there's something called a cloche that you can either purchase or you can kind of rig together. So a cloche, which is like an inverted kind of dome shape that you just put over the plant, and that will retain some of that heat and make sure that if it's going to get frosty, that your plant doesn't get frosted. So making sure just to cover up any of these warm season crops and just protect them. Also make sure that they are well watered. A well watered plant is going to be able to withstand cold temperatures better than a dried out plant. So make sure they're really well watered in the day, and then make sure that you're covering them up to protect them at night.